Emulation allows you to turn your TV into a retro gaming powerhouse. Play any game from any console with just a mini PC and some free software. Let me show you how. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. Games consoles have been around since the late 1970s, from the very early TTL logic systems, then through the iconic Atari VCS, the Nintendo NES, and on to the current generations of PlayStation and Xbox. Now, these many years of development have left behind a massive catalogue of great games charting the full progression of this amazing technology, from those very blurry blobs on your TV up to the 4K real-time game worlds of today. Now, the best part of all of this is that you can get access to absolutely everything without having to buy all 20 or 30 consoles. Now, emulation is the retro gamer's best friend, and that allows us to create a virtual console inside our PC. Now, every console ever made can be emulated right up to the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Switch. So in this video, I'll show you how to set up the emulators, get some games, and then put it all together in a great front-end system so that you can simply browse your collection and click to play any game. Now, this video is actually the second part of my ultimate retro gaming system, and the first part shows you how to set up the base front end and then fill it with home computer emulators. Now, as I've already covered the base setup in that video, I'm going to skip through that part quickly here, so please do jump over to part 1 when you come to start getting things set up for yourself. So, let's get going. So the basic setup that we'll be using is a Windows PC connected to our TV. Now, this gives us a solid computer to run all our code on. Now, you can use Android TV boxes, the Amazon Fire devices, Raspberry Pis, and other computer systems, and these all work fine, but each system, of course, is going to be limited by its processing power. So pretty much anything that you use will let you play the 8-bit and 16-bit consoles, but beyond that, the Android TV style devices do start to run out of steam a bit. Now, also, this project isn't going to work directly on your smart TV, unless of course that is an Android-powered device as well. Now, I'm going to be using this neat little mini PC from Melee, and I did review that in an earlier video, and it is a great little device with a powerful processor that lets you play right up to the latest emulators for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Now, you can of course use an old desktop PC, and that is a great solution, but I do find that these mini PCs, they are ideal for low noise and small size then, if you put them into a family TV setting. Now, again, for the front end and the emulators, I'll of course be going down the Windows route with a package called Launchbox. Now, this is pretty much my favourite retro gaming system, especially with the premium version Big Box. Now, there are other equally good front ends such as RetroBat and Batocera, so if anyone does want me to show you how to use those, then just let me know in the comments section down below. Now, as I said earlier, everything you need to know about getting set up with Launchbox is in the first video, so please do have a look at that. So for now, I'm going to assume that you've got Launchbox installed and all ready to go. So to be able to play retro games, we need two main bits of software. So an emulator is an application that runs on your PC and basically creates a virtual console inside software. So you want to play some NES games? Well, the NES emulator models every single part of the console in code. So the processor, memory, game card, display, and inputs, and then maps them to your PC devices so that you end up with an actual NES console sitting inside your computer. And this means that the original code from the games cartridges will run directly in the emulator without any modifications. So of course, when you're playing the games, you're actually playing the real game from the 1980s and not some remake. So the emulator creates the virtual machine, but of course we need some game code to play with. Now this is where you will have to do a bit of searching. Now these ROM files will probably be protected by copyright, so please do make sure that you have full permission to use these before you download them. If you're in doubt, do check out my video on retro gaming copyright laws, just to make sure that you stay legal. So once you've managed to get hold of some games, in our setup then, we're going to use Launchbox to find and install our emulators for us. We'll then just need to give it some game files and we'll be ready to play. So here I've already downloaded a number of game files and I've put them into folders so that I can keep the games together for each of the systems. Now most of the older systems can be handled in the same way, as we'll see in a minute, but some of the newer consoles need a bit of special tweaking to get the games to run. But of course, we'll have a look at that as we go through setting them up. So let's jump onto Launchbox and get started getting some games up and running. Launchbox then is a gaming front end, and this basically means that it collects all of your games into one application, groups them together so that you can easily browse and find what you want, and then launches the correct emulator or application then that's needed to run the game that you want to play automatically for you. Now on the screen at the moment you can see my Launchbox installation, and inside there of course I have a number of retro computer systems already loaded, and of course that was from part 1 of this series. But as yet I have no consoles. So we're going to start loading those in, and we'll start with the easy ones. Now as well as knowing what consoles you want to play, it's worth knowing a little bit about what emulators you'll need to run them. So for the 8-bit and 16-bit consoles, there is a great multi-platform emulator called RetroArch that will cover, well, pretty much everything. So you have two options for installing RetroArch. You can simply download the installation files from the main RetroArch website and copy them onto your PC, or we can get Launchbox to do all of that work for us. So let's be lazy and get Launchbox to install RetroArch for us. Now the best way to get Launchbox to get things set up for us is to try importing some games. So we've already got our games pre-downloaded. So if we now go into the Tools menu to Import, ROM files, and then Single Platform, this will start up the import wizard. So if we click on the Next button, it will ask us to select a folder that contains our games. So if you click on the Add Folder button and then navigate to your downloaded games folder and then select it. So okay, here I'm going to start with my Atari 2600 games. We can then click Next, and the wizard will scan the folder to try and identify which console games we're using. Now usually it will be able to work out what you're importing, but if it doesn't manage that, then just use the drop-down list to select the correct platform. Now if you haven't got a suitable emulator already installed, the wizard will now offer to install one for you. And as you can see, it's offering to install RetroArch, which is actually of course the one we want. So just click on the Install button to get Launchbox to do the work for you. So next we need to specify where we want the ROM files to live. Now the best place is inside the Launchbox game folder, so you can either move the files there or just copy them there. So as I actually have my files stored on the same PC as my Launchbox installation, I'm just going to move my files across, as I don't need to have two copies on my hard drive. So you're now asked if you want to download metadata. So this is information about the game that will be displayed as you browse through your collection, and it just adds to the fun and tells you a bit about the games that you might never have come across before. So we're going to say yes to this, and then on the images selection, I tend to just select all so that we get the game cover art, screenshots, logo, and everything else that will make our collection look great. Now, if you are stuck for disk space, then maybe only select the images that you really need, and that will cut down on the amount of data that it will download. On the next screen then, we can download small gameplay video clips from the Emu Movie service. Now, this is a PED system, but it does let you have short video clips that show gameplay, and those will be embedded directly into your collection, and you'll be able to see them as you browse through. And again, it just gives you a little bit of a preview of the game itself. So at the moment, I'm just going to skip this because, of course, it does take quite a long time to download, and it does use quite a lot of disk space for that. So on the next screen then, you can get some special options. Now, I tend to leave just the defaults turned on, which of course is combining titles and moving all the files. So just click next after that. And then lastly then, we should now get a list of games that Launchbox has actually found in your folder. So if everything seems okay, just click on the Finish button and let the installation begin. So firstly, Launchbox will update its database. It will then go off and download and install the emulator. And then it will copy over the games into the Launchbox Games folder. Finally then, it goes through a process of connecting these games up to the emulator, and then it will start to download the images and media files that we have asked for. Now all of this of course can take a while, so just let it run through. So once that's finished then, you should have an Atari 2600 listed in your left-hand menu, and you should be able to click on that and then see all your games with box art. Now if you single-click any of the games, details will pop up on the right-hand side, and you can see what the game is, a little bit of information about the history of the game and so on. And then there is a big play button, of course, and if you click that, Launchbox will then go off and play that game for you. So of course this all happens because Launchbox has installed both the emulator and an emulator core, which we'll talk about more in a second, so that RetroArch can turn your PC into an Atari VCS. And of course, that then lets the game play. And of course, we are playing the actual real Atari VCS cartridge directly on your PC. Now to play these games, of course, you're going to need some sort of controller. And here I'm using a wireless GameSir N2 Lite, which I did review a while back in one of my videos. So do please go and check that out. So once you're playing a game, to get out of it, all you need to do is to press the escape key twice. Now, that uses, of course, your keyboard, but you can set up controller shortcuts for this. And again, we can look at that in a later RetroArch specific video. For now, then, we'll just keep using the escape key to get us out of our games. So that's our first console installed and ready to play. Now, RetroArch can emulate a whole range of consoles and computers, and it does this by using a base emulation system that communicates with the game controllers, screen, and so on your PC, and then individual what are known as cores for each of the individual consoles. So these cores then contain the code on how to create a virtual console. So if you want to play any system, you need the base RetroArch system plus then a suitable core. So let's install a Super NES system onto Launchbox. So if we go back to our Tools menu, Import, ROMs and Single System, we can go off then and find our SNES Games folder. So once you've found and selected that, we should be able to click on Next, and at this point it should identify which platform we're importing. Now you do need to be very careful here. So mine has come up with SNES, but that's not actually what Launchbox is going to define it as. So if I pull down this list box here, you'll find that there actually is a Super Nintendo Entertainment System option, and that's what is the actual category which we want to drop it into. So do always check when you are doing this that you are actually using one of the official categories if it's a known console. So I'm going to set this now as Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So next we need to choose an emulator. So Launchbox knows what emulators you have installed, and we'll list them here. So of course I've got some home computer emulators already installed, but on yours you should then find RetroArch, which of course is the one that we've just had Launchbox install for us. So highlight that and select it. Now do make sure to check the box to automatically download the core if it's missing, and that way Launchbox will check that that core has actually been installed into RetroArch, and if not, it will download it and install it for you. So after we've done this, everything else then really is the same as before. So again, I'm moving my files over into my Launchbox Games folder. I'm going to allow it to search for metadata. I'm going to grab all of the images. I'm not using any movies. And at this point then, you may find that it offers you an option for downloading bezels. Now bezels are images that can be tailored to the console type or even sometimes individual games, and they sit around the play screen to make it look a little bit more like an arcade cabinet. Now I tend to let these download as theme bezels with a system fallback. So set that option. Again, on the next screen, I'm leaving the custom options alone, and then we should be ready to import. So if that all seems fine, then let that run through. And once everything has downloaded and installed, we should then have a set of SNES games all ready to play in their own console folder. So if you browse through and find a game, you should be able to launch that directly, as of course Launchbox has already set up that core for us. Now RetroArch has a whole range of cores for pretty much any console that you can think of, right up to the PlayStation 1 era. So you should now have enough information to be able to go off and set up a whole range of games consoles. But once you start to get past the PlayStation 1 era, you'll probably find that RetroArch cores aren't the best solution. Indeed, some systems don't actually have RetroArch cores. So for these, we're going to need to use standalone emulators. So for this demonstration then, I'm going to start looking at playing some Nintendo Wii games. So the best Wii emulator is the Dolphin emulator. Now this will not only play Wii games, but also GameCube games. And it also has the advantage of allowing you to connect original Wii game controllers to give you that full Wii motion gameplay. Again, that's directly on your PC. So again, Launchbox can help us set up all of this. So back into the Tools menu, we can go again to Import, ROMs, and Single Platform. We'll have to go off, of course, and find our Wii Games folder, and then tell Launchbox that we're installing Nintendo Wii games, and of course scraping them as Nintendo Wii games. So on the next screen, Launchbox will recognise that you don't have a Nintendo Wii emulator installed, and it will offer to do that for you. So as you can see, it knows about the Dolphin emulator, and of course has the ability then to go off and find the application files, download them for you, and install everything and set it up. But we're not actually going to do this time. So sometimes you'll want to use an emulator that Launchbox can't install for you. So I'm going to show you how to go through that process. So this manual process then will allow you to install basically any emulator you want, and then of course set it up and connect it with your games. And I'm going to do that then with this Dolphin emulator. So the Dolphin emulator can be downloaded from dolphin-emu.org. So just head over there and you'll see a big download button. So just download the latest version onto your PC. So this will come down as a .7z archive. So you are going to need something like 7-zip or Zip Pro to unpack that. Now, as we're using Launchbox, the best place to extract the files is into the emulators folder within the Launchbox folder. So if I open up the archive file, you'll see that there is a Dolphin-X64 folder inside there, and that contains all of the emulator files. So all we need to do is to just extract this folder and put that then in the Launchbox emulators folder, and that will of course then just install Dolphin for us. So once that's all extracted, we now need to install the emulator into Launchbox itself. Now, there are a number of ways to do this. And what we're basically doing is we need to create an emulator. We then need to create a platform or console. And then we need to connect the two together all inside Launchbox. Now, I think that some confusion does come about when you try to do all of this process in one go, as sometimes as you're going through, you can't see the emulator that you want to use, or sometimes you can't see the platform that you want to connect to. So this is my method to just make it that bit easier to make sure we don't get any stumbling blocks. Now, we have already got all the emulator files set up in our emulator folder inside Launchbox. So as far as downloading and installing the emulator onto our PC, that is all done. So we now need to create a platform in Launchbox to hold our Wii games. So if we go up to our Tools menu, we can select Manage and then Platforms. And this will show you a list of the computers and consoles that you've already loaded into the application. So at the moment, of course, we don't have a Nintendo Wii platform. So to get that set up, the easiest way is actually to just try importing some games. So I have some Nintendo Wii games here that I've got in WBFS format, which is basically a disk image of the Nintendo Wii disc. And I have then stored them into a folder on my PC. So back in Launchbox, if we go up to our Tools menu and then Import, ROM files and Single Platform, we can of course now go off as usual and find that folder which contains those Wii downloads. And again, I'm going to select that. So on the next screen, it's going to ask us what platform we're actually importing. So if you use the drop-down list to find the Nintendo Wii, we're now telling it that we are setting up the Nintendo Wii platform. So on the emulator setup screen, you can see that it does understand that it could install the Dolphin emulator for us, but of course we're going to manually configure our emulator, so do select that option. So on the next page, just click on the Next button because we're going to skip the emulator setup for now. So after that, we're back to our normal import files options. So just simply go through the rest of the screens as normal and finish off that game import. So once that's all set up, you should find that you have a Wii platform listed with some games on it in your left-hand menu. So this now gives us a completed platform that we can now attach an emulator to. So back up into the Tools menu again and select Manage and Emulators. And this will bring up a list of the currently connected emulators. So of course we want to add a new one using the button in the bottom left. So this is the screen where we now connect the emulator application to Launchbox and connect it up with our games. So if we first go to this left-hand menu and select the associated platforms option, you should then get a blank list. But if you click in the top associated platforms box, you should get a drop-down list. Now inside this list, you will find the Nintendo Wii platform that we just created. And that's why we created the platform first, because of course this list only lists the current platforms that we have loaded into Launchbox. So if you didn't create it first, you wouldn't actually find it here. So make sure that you select that. And then of course we're going to set this as the default emulator for our Nintendo Wii. So that step then connects this emulator, which of course we're going to now finish setting up, and that connects that then with the platform and the games that we've just imported for the Nintendo Wii. So back across to the left, and we're now going to go back up to that Details tab, and here we can now give this emulator a name. Now, of course, in the drop-down list, it already understands that there is one called Dolphin, but of course, if your emulator wasn't in there, you just simply need to type in the emulator name. So next, we need to point Launchbox at the emulator's executable file, so of course it can then launch that emulator. So click on the Browse button and then navigate across into your Launchbox emulators folder. And of course, that's where we'll find our Dolphin folder. And inside there, you should find a dolphin.exe file. So that is the actual executable file that runs Dolphin. So select that. Now, once we get back to our details screen, you might notice that Launchbox has automatically set up some default command line parameters for you. And of course, this is because it actually knows how to run Dolphin. For some other emulators then, you may want to set some parameters up here yourself. So just simply type those command line parameters into the box. So once you've got those set up, you can also, of course, set up some other options here, but usually you can just leave those as they are. So that's everything set up. So we can now click on OK. And that has now connected up our emulator inside Launchbox. So Launchbox knows how to start up the Dolphin emulator, and it knows that the Dolphin emulator is what we need to use if we want to run a Wii game. Now before we actually play a game, there's some other things that we do need to set up. So sometimes you will get emulators that don't work straight out of the box, and Dolphin is one of those. It does need a bit of setting up. And this setting up has to be done in the actual emulator main screen rather than doing anything from within a game or from within Launchbox. Now, luckily, Launchbox understands this process and allows you to run any of the emulator applications direct from this interface. So all we've got to do is we've got to find any one of our Wii games, then right-click on it, and then select the option to open Dolphin. So this will open up Dolphin itself and drop you into the main emulator screen. And of course, this is where we can get access to all of our different settings for Dolphin itself. So the main option that we need to alter then is for the controller setup. So at the top of the window, you'll see that there is an option for the GameCube controllers. So you'll probably have a standard controller set in port 1. So this needs to be mapped to your gamepad. So if you click on the configure button, you'll get a pop-up screen, and here we can select what type of controller we're using, and then click on each of the inputs to map it to a button or axis on our gamepad. So once you've gone through the whole mapping process, you'll now be able to use your gamepad as a GameCube controller when we run any GameCube games. So if we OK all of that, we can come back out to our main controller setup, and of course we now need to set up our Wii controllers. So here we have the option to use an emulated Wii remote or a real controller. So if you select the emulated controller, this will again, when we click on the configure button, that will take you off, and exactly as we did for our GameCube controller, we can then just map our PC gamepad into the Wii controls. But of course, if you do have a real Wiimote, you can set that up to get the full Wii experience. So for this, you are also going to need a sensor bar so that the Wiimote can detect where you're pointing it. So you can buy these quite cheaply from Amazon, and again, I'll put some links in the description. So these do plug into a USB port. The real sensor bar itself needs a different voltage, a higher voltage to work. So please don't try to connect that up to your PC. So with a sensor bar connected and a Wii remote ready, we can set up the Wii Remote 1 setting in Dolphin. So just simply select from that a real Wii remote. Next, we need to check the continuous scanning option down below, and this tells Dolphin to start looking for any available Wii remotes. Now these are going to connect over Bluetooth, so make sure that your Bluetooth adapter is turned on your PC, and then simply press the 1 and 2 buttons together on your Wiimote. And for that, you should then see the blue lights flashing, and this means that it is in pairing mode. So if everything is running correctly, Dolphin should operate your PC's Bluetooth connection and connect to that Wii remote. And you'll feel it buzz in your hand, and it will then drop down to probably one blue light on consistently. And that means that it has paired with your PC. Now, if this doesn't happen first time, just try it a few more times. If you still can't get it to work, then you will need to go into your Bluetooth settings on your PC, go through and add a new device. When you scan for new devices, press the 1 and 2 buttons on the Nintendo controller to put it into pairing mode, or inside the battery compartment, there's a little orange button you can press which puts it into pairing mode. And then you should be able to connect that then to your PC. If it does ask for an access code, then just simply either skip that if you can, or if you have to enter one, just enter 0000. But this then should allow Dolphin to connect to your PC. If you're still having problems, I have also found sometimes if you reset your PC and go back into Dolphin again, sometimes that does seem to help it make a connection. But again, if your Bluetooth connection is working okay, then everything should connect up. So at this point, your Dolphin emulator and Wii games should all be ready to play. So if I come back into Launchbox and find a game, I can simply double click on that, or of course single click on it and then click the play button. That should power up my Dolphin emulator, load in my Wii game, and I should now be able to use my Wii controller as normal and get through and actually go off then and play my Wii game as it was intended to be played. So, all that's left now is to basically repeat this setup process for as many consoles as you want to install. Now don't forget, you can also set up home computer emulation, and again, just pop across to the part 1 of this series and follow the steps in there to get all of your favourite retro home computers all set up. And after that then, you should have a mini PC that's ideal for your family TV and that lets you play all the consoles and all the home computers and all the games. So, have fun. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do have a go at setting up your own retro gaming system. It really is a whole lot of fun. Please do make sure then that you click that like button and make sure that you subscribe to the channel for lots more gaming, emulation, electronics and making projects. I look forward to seeing you again very soon, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.